Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping into a world where medicine blurred with magic, and pleasure could kill as quickly as it healed. Imagine walking through a Roman marketplace where opium pills are sold like candy, or entering a Greek temple where thousands drink a hallucinogenic potion that promises death and rebirth. In the shadows of Capua, witches sell nightshade that can send you to paradise or the grave. Soldiers collapse in droves after tasting mad honey, while emperors drift into sleep each night with a cup of drugged wine. This isn't the story of Pablo Escobar or modern narcos. It's the untold history of how the Greeks and Romans lived, fought, and died on drugs. If you're ready for secrets buried beneath myths and marble, hit like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, would you have dared to taste the ancients' forbidden highs? You stand at the edge of history, the sun warm on your face, the scent of ancient dust in the air. Imagine a time, long, long ago, reaching back to nearly 1600 BCE, where the world you knew was still taking shape, its rhythms dictated by the sun and the seasons. It's a world that feels both familiar and utterly alien. You might think of drug trading as a modern phenomenon, perhaps a shadowed affair of the last few centuries. But if you listen closely to the whispers of the past, you'll hear a different story, one that began even before the grand empires rose, before the philosophical debates of Athens, or the gladiatorial cries of Rome. Archaeologists, those diligent keepers of forgotten tales, have unearthed intriguing clues across lands now known as Egypt, the Levant, and the sun-drenched shores of Greece. Picture delicate, almost artistic, flasks shaped unmistakably like the very poppy pods themselves. These aren't just isolated finds, single curiosities from a forgotten era. No, these are discovered in numbers, in patterns, hinting at something far grander than mere chance. You can almost feel the coolness of the clay in your hand, tracing the familiar curve that mirrors the plant, which held such potent secrets. Their very existence, their widespread distribution, and the uniform nature of their design suggests something profoundly organized. It paints a picture of a flourishing network, a kind of ancient Silk Road, not of spices or silk, but of a different kind of commodity, one that touched the mind and body. You can almost see the ships, their sails billowing with the wind, carrying this precious cargo across the sapphire blue Mediterranean, from bustling ports to distant, waiting lands. It speaks of an intricate dance of supply and demand, of cultivators and merchants, of a system that understood the power of these substances long before modern science gave them names. For the people of ancient Greece and Rome, the poppy, with its delicate petals and potent sap, and hemp, with its hardy fibers and intoxicating smoke, were not shrouded in the veil of taboo. They were woven into the very fabric of daily life. You might pass fields of poppies, their vibrant reds and whites a splash of color against the green. Without a second thought, you might see hemp growing, destined for ropes or fabrics, yet also holding a deeper, more subtle purpose. These plants were not hidden, not feared, but understood as part of the natural world, possessing both utility and a mysterious power. Their presence, so openly acknowledged, yet often employed in contexts that hint at deeper practices, signals the existence of an ancient, underground world. Not necessarily one of illegality or dark alleys, but one where certain knowledge, certain uses, were understood, shared, and perhaps, sometimes, carefully guarded. It was a world where medicine and pleasure, ritual and escape, converged. You begin to understand that the foundations of a relationship with altered states, with substances that could soothe or exhilarate, were laid millennia ago, shaping human experience in ways we are only just beginning to truly grasp. But as you reflect on the gentle sway of the poppy, know that it was not the only, nor necessarily the deadliest, key to unlocking other realms. There were other, darker secrets hidden in the grain, a fungus that could open the gates of hallucination with an intensity that opium could only dream of. You find yourself walking a dusty path, perhaps one trodden by countless pilgrims over millennia, leading toward the sacred grounds of Eleusis. The air here feels different, charged with anticipation, a subtle hum of collective energy. It is here, in this ancient Greek sanctuary, that one of antiquity's most potent hallucinogens, a substance far more disorienting than the poppy, entered the human experience. Imagine a tiny, unassuming fungus, almost imperceptible to the naked eye, clinging to the barley stalks in the fields surrounding the sanctuary. This is ergot, and for the Greeks, it was a profound key. The legend speaks of the Eleusinian mysteries, a secret religious initiation that took place over a span of nearly 2,000 years, a testament to its enduring power. You can almost see the flickering torchlight, hear the hushed whispers of thousands gathering in the great telesterion, the hall of initiation. They came from all corners of the Greek world, seeking a profound, transformative experience. And central to this ritual was a sacred draught, a potion known as kykeon. You picture yourself amongst them, feeling the communal anticipation, the sense of a shared journey into the unknown. Scholars, peering back through the mists of time, have pieced together clues, suggesting that this kykeon, this potent beverage, likely contained ergot. If you were there, preparing to drink, you might feel a mixture of reverence and trepidation. The effects, they say, were profound. Worshippers described visions so vivid, so all-encompassing, that they spoke of experiencing death and rebirth. Imagine the world dissolving around you, the boundaries of yourself blurring, your consciousness expanding into realms both terrifying and sublime. You are dying, yet being reborn, all in the span of a sacred night. Modern minds, trying to understand the intensity of these ancient experiences, have drawn parallels to a substance many are familiar with, LSD. Envision this ritual as an ancient, organic, and deeply spiritual equivalent of a psychedelic mass experience. The collective trances, the shared visions, the profound emotional and spiritual breakthroughs experienced by thousands simultaneously would have created an atmosphere unlike anything else. You might feel a primal connection to the earth, to the gods, to the very fabric of existence, all brought forth by this humble fungus. The sacred nature of ergot, its careful cultivation and use within the confines of these revered mysteries, speaks volumes. It was not a recreational substance, not one you would find sold openly in the marketplace. It was a conduit to the divine, a carefully guarded secret, its power understood and respected, used to unlock the deepest questions of life and death, purpose and meaning. This careful reverence contrasted sharply with another powerful substance that would come to define everyday life. While ergot remained cloaked in the sanctity of Eleusis, opium, with its more gentle, yet equally profound effects, would emerge as the king of the ancient world, weaving itself into the daily routines of countless lives. a silent companion in both solace and sorrow. Now, as you drift from the hallowed, secretive halls of Eleusis, you find yourself in a more bustling, vibrant scene. A marketplace, perhaps, or a quiet Roman villa bathed in the warm Mediterranean light. Here, another substance truly reigns supreme, its influence stretching from the fertile lands of Egypt across the sparkling Aegean to the heart of mighty Rome. This was opium, the undisputed monarch of the ancient world's pharmacopoeia. You might feel a sense of its pervasive presence, a subtle undercurrent in the rhythm of daily life. Imagine standing in a Roman market, the air alive with the chatter of merchants and the aroma of exotic spices. Among the stalls, you would find small, unassuming tablets, perfectly legal and readily available. Any citizen, from the lowliest laborer to the most esteemed senator, could purchase these tiny pills, molded from the dried sap of the poppy. You could reach out, pick one up, feel its smooth, cool surface, a tangible link to comfort and a quiet escape. It was as common, perhaps, as purchasing a loaf of bread or a measure of olive oil. The reputation of certain opium strains echoed through the ancient world. You might hear whispers of Opium thabaicum, prized for its potency, harvested from the sun-baked fields around Thebes in Egypt. Or perhaps Cyrenaica, from the lush coastal regions of Libya, known for its distinct qualities. The esteemed physician Dioscorides, whose knowledge of herbs and remedies was encyclopedic, even left behind detailed descriptions. He meticulously outlined the precise art of cutting the poppy pods, a skilled hand carefully scoring the unripe fruit, allowing the milky white resin to ooze forth, glistening under the sun before hardening into the precious dark gum. You can almost see the careful movements of the harvesters, their hands stained with the potent sap, understanding the value of each drop. In the grand and complex society of Rome, opium found its most versatile applications. You might observe a weary traveler, seeking respite after a long journey, having their evening wine mixed with a measure of opium, a cretic wine perhaps, to induce a peaceful, restorative sleep. Imagine the quiet calm settling over you, the day's anxieties gently receding as the drug took hold. For those seeking a milder effect, a gentler lull, there was meconium, a weaker drink brewed from poppy leaves, offering a more subtle wave of tranquility. Even the most powerful figures of the empire were not immune to its charms. Consider Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a man burdened with the immense responsibility of ruling a vast empire, a philosopher king known for his stoic wisdom. Each night, as the shadows lengthened and the city settled into its slumber, he would partake in a cup of opium-laced wine. You can almost picture him, perhaps in his private chambers, the lamplight casting long shadows, finding solace and a quiet oblivion in the gentle embrace of the poppy. Yet, this drug, which offered such profound comfort and soothed the sharpest pains, also held a darker, more definitive power. It offered not just rest, but a silent, dignified exit from the stage of life itself. As you delve deeper into the ancient world's relationship with these potent substances, you begin to grasp their inherent duality. They were not simply good or bad, but tools, often holding both healing power and the potential for a swift, irreversible end. Imagine the delicate balance, the careful hand required to navigate this landscape where life and death could be held in the same small vial. For the Greeks and Romans, drugs were both healers and, in a profound sense, executioners, interwoven into the very fabric of existence. You might find yourself in a bustling Roman sick room, where a physician carefully administers opium. It was the quintessential painkiller, dulling the agony of wounds, calming the incessant cough, and coaxing the restless into a much-needed sleep. Feel the subtle easing of tension, the quiet hush that falls over the patient as the drug begins its work. It was a blessing, a merciful intervention in a world where remedies were often scarce and pain was a constant companion. Beyond opium, other plants offered their own distinct contributions. Cannabis, for instance, might be applied to soothe a throbbing earache, its subtle properties providing localized relief. And you might hear whispers of hashish, a more potent form, carefully administered to ease the excruciating pains of childbirth, offering a precious moment of reprieve to women enduring one of life's most profound trials. Imagine the relief, the softening of agony, in a time without modern anesthetics. Then there was Mandrake, a root often imbued with an almost mystical quality due to its human-like shape. Brewed into a powerful anesthetic, it could plunge a patient into a deep, unconscious state, allowing for painful surgeries or treatments that would otherwise be unbearable. You might witness the preparations, the careful measuring, the solemn understanding of its power to grant a temporary, blessed oblivion. Yet, this same opium, this bringer of comfort and peace, was also recognized as a potent instrument for intentional suicide. For the ancients, the concept of suicide carried a different weight than it might today. It was often viewed not as a weakness, but as a calm, dignified exit, especially in the face of insurmountable suffering or dishonor. Imagine the gravity of such a decision, the quiet determination. A simple mixture of poppy juice and hemlock, a potent poison, was understood to guarantee an eternal sleep, a peaceful transition from this life. You can almost feel the somber acceptance, the quiet finality of such an act, as the individual chose their own ending. So, as you reflect on these substances, you see them not as simple medicines or recreational diversions, but as integral parts of the ancient worldview. They offered solace in pain, escape in sorrow, and a chosen pathway to the beyond. They were a testament to the complex understanding of plants and their profound effects on the human condition, embodying both the promise of life and the inevitability of death, held in a delicate, often ambiguous, balance. You step back in time, further than the Roman marketplaces, into a world where ancient cultures moved and mingled, their knowledge and customs spreading like ripples across a vast, interconnected landscape. Imagine the distant echoes of the Yamnaya people, a nomadic culture from the steppes, who, over 5,000 years ago, carried with them not just their herds and their language, but also the seeds of cannabis, introducing this remarkable plant into Europe. Feel the slow, inexorable march of history, bringing new plants, new experiences, new ways of perceiving the world. For the Greeks, cannabis offered a unique form of social communion. Picture a gathering, perhaps a symposium, where intellectuals and friends conversed and celebrated. Instead of modern methods, you might see them burning hemp in small braziers, allowing the intoxicating smoke to gently fill the room. Imagine the subtle shift in the atmosphere, the soft haze, the way the light catches the drifting tendrils of smoke. As the smoke wafted through the air, it would gradually envelop the room, softening conversations, easing inhibitions, and perhaps sparking new ideas or deeper laughter. You breathe in, feeling the distinctive scent, and a quiet sense of relaxation begins to spread through you. Even the authoritative physician Dioscorides, whom you encountered earlier, took note of cannabis's effects. He issued a warning, yet one that reveals a fascinating insight into ancient concerns. He observed that cannabis had the power to dry the body and, notably, to reduce sexual desire. For those wrestling with what they perceived as excessive lust, or perhaps for individuals seeking a certain spiritual or philosophical detachment, this effect might have been seen not as a drawback, but as a useful property. You reflect on the different ways societies view desire and control, and how even plants were enlisted in these complex human endeavors. Pliny the Elder, another keen observer of the natural world and human society, offered a more playful perspective. He famously dubbed cannabis the laughing weed, recognizing its capacity to induce mirth and gaiety. He even suggested it was ideal for spiking wine at feasts. Imagine the scene: a lavish banquet, tables laden with food, wine flowing freely, and then a subtle addition that elevates the mood, bringing forth peals of laughter and a sense of carefree abandon. You hear the joyful din, feel the conviviality, the shared sense of lightness that permeates the room. The Romans, ever practical, also embraced cannabis, affectionately calling it the merriment supplement. It became an essential ingredient for social gatherings, a silent enhancer of festive occasions. You can almost see the hosts discreetly adding it to the wine, or perhaps passing around small bowls of prepared hemp, knowing that it would help the evening flow with greater ease and joy. Yet, like many pleasures, this laughter often had a flip side. When the ephemeral merriment faded, cannabis, particularly in its more potent forms, could leave behind deeper, sometimes darker, effects, a lingering haze that hinted at other, more shadowed substances waiting in the wings. You leave the convivial Roman banquets behind and step into a different kind of ancient landscape, one where the light is perhaps a little dimmer, and the air carries an intriguing, almost dangerous scent. You find yourself drawn to Capua, a city known for its vibrant commerce and, in particular, its notorious Saplasia district. This was no ordinary marketplace. It was a labyrinth of sensory experiences, a place where drugs, perfumes, and ointments flowed freely, blurring the lines between medicine, magic, and outright peril. Imagine the narrow alleys, the hushed whispers, the tantalizing displays of strange concoctions. Here, amongst the more benign remedies and fragrant oils, lay substances of profound power, some capable of unlocking visions, others of stealing life. One such plant was deadly nightshade, its dark berries and unassuming leaves concealing a potent secret. In tiny, carefully measured doses, it was said to trigger days of vivid, often terrifying, hallucinations. You can almost feel the feverish intensity, the mind adrift in a landscape of its own making. But you also know the chilling truth: an overdose meant certain, agonizing death. The margin between ecstasy and oblivion was incredibly thin, a razor's edge. The poet Ovid, ever a keen observer of human nature and the darker aspects of society, wove the essence of deadly nightshade into his verses. He linked it explicitly to witches and their arcane spells, imbuing the plant with an aura of dark magic and forbidden power. You can almost hear his words, painting pictures of mysterious women brewing their potent drafts under the pale moonlight, using nightshade to conjure visions or enforce their will. It speaks to a deep-seated belief in the supernatural, where plants were not just chemicals, but conduits for spiritual forces. Another dangerous beauty found in these bazaars was Henbane, often called stinking nightshade due to its pungent aroma, whether inhaled as smoke or ingested in a drink. It was known to produce a heavy, drunken stupor, a kind of disoriented intoxication. You can imagine the disorientation, the world spinning, the mind losing its grip on reality. It was a means of escape, but also a tool for manipulation for those seeking to render others helpless or compliant. These powerful plants were often not used in isolation. You can almost hear the low murmur of negotiations, the careful instructions passed between buyer and seller. They were frequently mixed into more complex, often psychedelic cocktails, designed to produce even stronger, more unpredictable highs. Imagine the daring of those who experimented, blending these potent botanicals, venturing into uncharted territories of consciousness, knowing that each sip or inhalation could bring profound insights or a terrifying descent into madness. The bazaars of Saplasia were, in essence, toxic treasure troves, places where ancient knowledge of plants converged with human desires for healing, pleasure, and power. They were places where the boundaries between medicine, magic, and addiction became dangerously blurred, leaving you to ponder the choices made in these shadowy corners and the profound risks taken in pursuit of the ultimate high or the ultimate cure. As you journey through these ancient landscapes, you discover that even nature itself, in its most seemingly benign forms, could hold unexpected, deadly secrets. Imagine the sweet, golden allure of honey, a staple of ancient diets, a symbol of bounty and health. But sometimes, even this innocent sweetness wore a disguise, becoming a silent, insidious weapon. This is the story of mad honey, a substance as beautiful as it was treacherous. The source of this peril lay in certain rhododendron flowers. When bees gathered nectar from these specific varieties, the honey they produced became infused with powerful neurotoxins. You can almost see the vibrant blossoms, innocent in their beauty, yet containing a hidden danger that would pass into the very heart of the hive. This was a secret of the natural world, one that humans learned, often with devastating consequences. The earliest recorded account of mad honey comes from 401 BCE, a tale recounted by the Greek historian Xenophon. Picture a scene of weary soldiers, 10,000 of them, part of a retreating army, marching through the rugged terrain of what is now Turkey. They are tired, hungry, and upon discovering abundant honeycombs, they feast eagerly, their spirits lifted by the unexpected sweetness. You can almost taste the rich, viscous honey, a momentary comfort in a harsh world. But then, a terrifying transformation begins. Within hours, the soldiers are overcome. They begin to vomit uncontrollably, their bodies racked with convulsions, collapsing in droves across the landscape. Imagine the chaos, the fear, the sudden onset of mass incapacitation. Yet, remarkably, by the following day, the effects had largely worn off. They recovered, though undoubtedly with a profound respect for nature's deceptive sweetness. A far more deliberate and tragic incident occurred centuries later, in 67 BCE, during the height of Roman military might. The formidable Roman general Pompey led his troops through the same region, battling against King Mithridates VI of Pontus. A cunning and resourceful adversary, Mithridates, with an intimate knowledge of his homeland's flora, devised a brutal trap. He had honeycombs, collected from the very same toxic rhododendron flowers, strategically placed along the Roman army's path. The unsuspecting Roman soldiers, hungry and exhausted, devoured the sweet offering. You can almost hear the sounds of their feasting, quickly turning to groans of agony. In a single horrifying night, approximately 1,000 soldiers fell victim to the poisoned honey, their bodies racked, their fighting spirit utterly broken. It was a victory for Mithridates, achieved not with swords or arrows, but with the subtle, sweet deception of nature. This chilling account serves as a stark reminder sometimes. Death wears the most alluring disguise, nature itself, with its beautiful flowers and industrious bees, could become a chemical weapon of war, more insidious than any crafted by human hands. It underscores the profound ancient understanding, born from harsh experience, that even the most seemingly harmless elements of the world could harbor potent dangers. Yet, these powerful, mind-altering substances weren't only weapons or tools for personal escape. They also sparked the human imagination, weaving their way into the very fabric of literature and legend, becoming symbols in the epic tales that shaped ancient thought. As you explore the depths of ancient consciousness, you discover that the power of these substances extended far beyond their physical effects. They transcended the mundane, finding their way into the very heart of myth and literature, shaping the narratives that defined the ancient world. You are drawn into stories where gods and heroes grapple with temptation, escape, and the alluring haze of altered perception. Consider the timeless epic of Homer's Odyssey, a foundational text of Western literature. You are transported to the palace of Menelaus, where Helen, burdened by the long shadows of the Trojan War and the lingering pain of past betrayals, performs a remarkable act. To soothe the sorrow and quell the rising anger of her guests, she slips a happy drug into their wine. Imagine the scene: the quiet clinking of cups, the shared drink, and then a profound sense of peace descending upon the company. Grief and rage, those powerful, consuming emotions, simply melted away, replaced by a gentle serenity. You feel the softening of the harsh edges of reality, the quiet comfort offered by this mysterious draught. The precise identity of Helen's happy drug remains a tantalizing mystery, but its effect is clear: a magical elixir that offered profound emotional release. Later in Odysseus's arduous journey, you encounter the captivating tale of the Lotus Eaters. Picture Odysseus's weary sailors, finally making landfall on a strange, beautiful island. Here, the inhabitants subsist on the blue lotus, a flower that offers a unique form of bliss. When Odysseus's men taste this ethereal plant, they are immediately enveloped in a state of serene euphoria. All desire to return home, all memory of their arduous journey, their wives, and their children, simply fades away, replaced by a blissful contentment. You imagine the seductive power of such a state, the desire to remain forever in that peaceful, dreamlike haze, free from the burdens of the world. Odysseus, realizing the danger of this intoxicating forgetfulness, had to forcibly drag his men back to their ships, breaking the spell that threatened to trap them forever in a waking dream. The blue lotus itself was a real plant, recognized for its mild euphoric and tranquilizing properties. It was also believed to be a natural aphrodisiac, enhancing libido and sensory pleasure. You can almost envision the flower, its petals a gentle blue, holding within it the promise of a quiet joy, a subtle expansion of consciousness. It offered a gentle escape, a temporary reprieve from the harsh realities of life and the relentless pull of duty. In these myths, Drugs became more than mere substances. They transformed into potent symbols. They embodied both the seductive allure of escape and the perilous depths of temptation. They reflected the ancient imaginations grappling with altered states of consciousness, with the idea of a world beyond the immediate, and with the human desire for solace, pleasure, and forgetfulness. They were threads woven into the grand tapestries of legend, reminding us that the human fascination with mind-altering plants is as old as storytelling itself. Now, let's bring these stories to life, grounding them in the everyday realities of ancient Greece and Rome. You might assume that such powerful substances were reserved for special occasions or the elite. But the truth is far more pervasive. Imagine a typical day, from dawn to dusk, and you will find that drugs were woven into the tapestry of daily existence, from the highest echelons of society to the humblest homes, across cities and battlefields. You are there, observing, participating, breathing the same air as those who lived on these ancient highs. Begin your journey in a bustling Roman market, a place you might visit for your daily provisions. The sun is bright, the air filled with the cries of vendors and the scent of fresh produce. Amidst the baskets of olives and amphorae of wine, you see a vendor, perhaps an unassuming woman, selling small tablets. These are opium pills, and they are as readily available as a piece of fruit or a simple confection. You could reach out and buy one, feeling its smooth, cool surface, a legal and accepted part of commerce. Imagine the ease with which one could obtain such a potent substance, a testament to its integration into the social fabric. As evening approaches, you are invited to a lavish banquet, a symposium where conversation flows as freely as the wine. The atmosphere is vibrant, filled with laughter and philosophical debate. The air might carry a subtle, intriguing scent. Perhaps, as the evening progresses, you notice a shift in the mood. The wine, already intoxicating, is discreetly spiked with cannabis. You feel a gentle wave of euphoria, a deepening of camaraderie. Conversations become more animated. Laughter rings out with greater abandon, and bodies sway with an easy, uninhibited rhythm. You are part of a collective experience, a shared journey into merriment, facilitated by the laughing weed. Move now to a more intimate, profound setting, a maternity room. In a time when childbirth was fraught with immense pain and danger, ancient wisdom sought solace in nature. You might observe a woman in labor, her face etched with agony, yet finding moments of precious relief. She is offered a ritualized inhalation of hashish smoke. Imagine the careful preparation, the soothing hands, as the smoke gently fills her lungs, offering a blessed softening of the intense labor pains, a temporary reprieve from the overwhelming discomfort. It's a moment of deep, human connection, where the power of a plant offers mercy in a time of profound vulnerability. Beyond the cities and homes, even the harsh realities of military life were touched by these substances. In army camps, often far from home and civilization, Roman soldiers faced unimaginable trauma and physical agony. After a grueling battle, or to simply endure the constant aches of campaign life, you might see them sipping opium wine. Imagine the stoic faces, the grim acceptance of their wounds, yet finding a quiet solace in the drugged wine, numbing the sharp edges of pain and the psychological scars of war. It allowed them to rest, to recover, to face another day. And venture further north, to the nomadic Scythian warriors. Picture their sweat lodges, dark and humid, filled not just with steam, but with the thick, intoxicating smoke of cannabis. These fierce warriors would gather, inhaling the fumes, their bodies moving into wild, trance-like dances, their spirits soaring. You feel the primal rhythm, the communal energy, the profound connection to something ancient and wild. From the bustling streets to the hallowed temples, from intimate bedrooms to brutal battlefields, drugs were everywhere. They were healers, comforters, catalysts for joy, and tools for endurance, woven into the very fabric of Mediterranean life, shaping the experiences of countless individuals in ways both subtle and profound. As you journey back from this immersive glimpse into the ancient world, you carry with you a richer understanding of a past often simplified or misunderstood. The Greeks and Romans, in their pragmatic wisdom and their profound connection to the natural world, understood that drugs held a dual nature, a capacity both to heal and to kill. They navigated this complex reality with a remarkable blend of acceptance and caution. You reflect on their perspective, so different from our own, yet strangely familiar in its core human desires. They embraced many substances, legalizing their sale and integrating them into daily life, religious rituals, and even warfare. Yet, paradoxically, you also find that their writings often approach these same substances with a degree of caution, almost a veiled taboo. There was an unspoken understanding of their potency, a recognition that while they could offer immense benefit, they also demanded respect and could lead to profound peril. This duality, this acceptance balanced with an underlying apprehension, speaks volumes about their nuanced worldview. Drugs touched every conceivable aspect of ancient Mediterranean life. They were integral to medicine, offering solace from pain and a pathway to healing. They were central to religion, providing visions and communion with the divine. They enlivened feasts, sparking laughter and camaraderie. They were deployed in warfare, both as a means to endure suffering and as a cunning weapon. And profoundly, they offered a chosen path in moments of personal crisis, a means of dignified suicide. You realize that these substances were not peripheral. They were deeply, irrevocably inseparable from the ancient human experience. From the quiet strength of opium and the communal joy of cannabis, to the hallucinatory depths of ergot, the deceptive sweetness of mad honey, and the tranquil bliss of the blue lotus. The ancient world was awash in a potent cocktail of pleasure and peril. It was a world of experimentation, of observation, and of a deep, experiential knowledge of the plant kingdom's profound influence on the mind and body. Yet, even with our modern tools and our relentless pursuit of knowledge, much remains unsolved, shrouded in the mists of time. Was the kykeon of the Eleusinian mysteries truly laced with ergot, transforming religious devotion into a psychedelic journey? What exactly was Helen's mysterious happy drug that could so effortlessly erase grief and rage? These questions linger, whispering from the ancient texts and archaeological sites, inviting continued contemplation. The final question, perhaps the most profound, hangs in the air, echoing across the millennia. Were the ancients wise in their decision to legalize and integrate these powerful substances so thoroughly into their lives, embracing their benefits while acknowledging their dangers? Or were they, in their open approach, ultimately doomed by them, their societies subtly shaped by the pervasive influence of altered states? As you stand here, at the crossroads of history, you are left to ponder this complex legacy, reflecting on a world where the boundaries of consciousness were constantly explored, and the human desire for escape, solace, and transcendence was met, for better or worse, by the potent gifts of the earth. Imagine, if you will, that you are standing in the vast, open-air arena, the sun beating down on your face. The air is thick with the scent of dust, sweat, and something more metallic, something primal. Around you, the colossal roar of the crowd, a living, breathing entity, rises and falls like the tide of an angry ocean. Thousands upon thousands of voices, a surging wave of human sound, fill the sky, echoing off the towering stone walls, vibrating through the very ground beneath your feet. Your heart pounds, a frantic drum against your ribs, because you know that in this moment, in this very space, life and death hang precariously balanced, held within the whims of a single gesture. You are a gladiator, perhaps, or a silent observer, your fate tied to the outcome of this brutal ballet. The fight has just concluded. Two figures, one standing, one fallen, lie at the mercy of the masses. The victor, a figure of strength and grim resolve, stands over his defeated opponent, awaiting the verdict. But it is not the gladiators who hold the power now. It is the crowd. Their fingers are raised, a forest of hands reaching towards the heavens. Each digit a vote, each subtle shift of the thumb a decree. A simple turn, an imperceptible movement, and one life can be instantly erased from the tapestry of existence. A flicker of light extinguished in the harsh glare of the Roman sun. You understand the unspoken rule of this brutal entertainment. Losing a fight here, in this blood-soaked amphitheater, did not guarantee survival. Oh, no. The bloodthirsty masses, having paid for a spectacle, demanded their due. They craved the drama, the raw emotion, the finality of death. If the fight hadn't been bloody enough, if the fallen warrior hadn't shown enough spirit in their defeat, or if the crowd simply felt a cruel urge for more, then mercy was a concept as foreign as a gentle breeze in a desert storm. Their appetite for violence was insatiable, and your life, or the life of the warrior before you, was simply the next course. There were even certain engagements, predetermined and announced with chilling clarity, known as sine missione fights. These were battles where no exceptions were made, no pleas for clemency heard. Someone, without question, without doubt, was guaranteed to die. It was written in the very sand beneath their feet, a dark contract sealed with a gladius. You can almost feel the chill that runs through the fighters when such a term is uttered. A cold certainty that one of them will not see the next sunrise. It was here, in these arenas, under the watchful, demanding gaze of its citizens, that the mighty Roman Empire, in its peculiar genius, transformed the ancient act of execution into what we might today call the world's very first reality show. A macabre theater where real lives were the ultimate prize, and their endings, the final, most gripping act. The weight of that collective decision, the power held in a single finger, is a chilling testament to the empire's grand, ruthless design. As you look out across a dusty training yard, or perhaps a shadowed corridor leading to the arena, you begin to wonder about the souls who found themselves here. Who were these individuals, destined for such a perilous existence? Their origins were as varied as the provinces of the vast Roman Empire, each story a thread woven into the complex fabric of gladiatorial life. You quickly learn that not all gladiators arrived by the same grim path, nor did they face the same fate once they stepped onto the sand. There were the Basa Noxi, the condemned, often prisoners of war, or those deemed enemies of the state. Imagine the terror of being captured, dragged across vast distances, only to find yourself shackled in a foreign land. Your language is not understood, your customs are alien, and your future is utterly bleak. You are tossed into this cruel world, given rudimentary weapons, and often thrown to wild beasts, snarling lions, ferocious bears, or swift, cunning leopards. For the sheer spectacle of it. You are not meant to fight, not truly. You are fodder, a disposable pawn in Rome's grand display of power. Your purpose is simply to die, to entertain, to demonstrate the might of the empire over its conquered foes. You can almost hear their desperate cries, their raw fear, as the beast handlers release their magnificent, deadly creatures into the arena. Then there were the damnati, the slaves and criminals. These were individuals already stripped of their freedom, condemned by the harsh Roman legal system. Perhaps they stole a loaf of bread to feed their family, or challenged a master, or committed some other transgression against the state. Their sentence was death, but a death to be drawn out, sensationalized, and made into a public example. Forced to fight, often with inadequate training or inferior weapons. Their lives were cheap, their deaths expected. You see the despair in their eyes, the heavy burden of their past crimes or misfortunes, as they are led towards the gladiatorial school, their last, brutal chance at a twisted form of redemption through blood. They are told to fight, to make a show of it. But their chances of survival are slim, a cruel jest in the face of their condemnation. And finally, perhaps the most intriguing group were the octorati. These were free men, Roman citizens even, who voluntarily chose the gladiatorial path. Why, you might ask? Would a free man willingly sign away his life, commit to the oath of the gladiator, and face such a terrifying future? The reasons were many, and all spoke to the harsh realities of Roman society. For some, it was crushing debt, a desperate gamble to earn enough money to clear their name and protect their family from poverty. For others, it was the siren call of fame and glory, a chance to rise from obscurity and become a celebrated hero, even if only for a fleeting, blood-soaked moment. Imagine a young man, perhaps from a struggling farm, seeing no other way out, signing his name on a contract that might just as easily be his death warrant. These different origins meant vastly different treatments. The noxi and damnati were often seen as expendable, mere tools for the arena's grim entertainment, destined to become lion chow or cannon fodder. The octorati, however, especially those who showed skill and promise, were an investment. They were potential killing machines, valuable assets to be trained, fed, and honed into magnificent fighters. For their victories brought prestige and profit to their owners. As you stand there, observing, you can sense the stark difference in their gaits, the fire of ambition in some eyes, the quiet resignation in others. Some sought glory, yes, but for many, many more. They were simply bodies to fill the arena, their lives a fleeting, brutal currency in Rome's grand spectacle. The low murmur of voices, the clinking of goblets, the rich aroma of roasted meat and strong wine. It's a scene you might expect in a Roman noble's dining hall. But as you step into this space, perhaps a large, communal room within the gladiatorial barracks, a chilling understanding washes over you. This is no ordinary feast. This is the Last Supper for many. a meal imbued with both decadence and profound tragedy. You can almost taste the heavy air of anticipation, a mixture of forced merriment and quiet dread. Before the grand spectacle, before the gates of the arena swing open to reveal the roaring crowd and the blinding sun, the gladiators are given a lavish meal. You see platters laden with succulent meats, perhaps roasted boar or tender lamb, glistening with herbs and spices. There are baskets overflowing with freshly baked bread, still warm from the ovens, its yeasty scent mingling with the more robust aromas. Bowls of plump olives, sweet figs, and pungent cheeses are scattered amongst the tables. And, of course, there is wine, flowing freely, poured into cups of every description, its rich, fruity scent a momentary escape from the grim reality. This is more than just a meal. It's a ritual, a strange, poignant send-off. The organizers provide this feast knowing, with absolute certainty, that a significant number of these men gathered here will not return. Imagine sitting at that table. You see the faces around you, some are boisterous, laughing a little too loudly, trying to mask their fear with a bravado fueled by wine. Others are quiet, their eyes distant, lost in thought, perhaps picturing the faces of their loved ones or the peaceful fields they once knew. You can almost feel the weight of their unspoken goodbyes, the unspoken fear. Even the condemned Noxii, those unfortunate souls destined to be thrown to wild beasts with little chance of defense, are given this final, opulent meal. It's a bizarre gesture, almost mocking in its generosity, offering a taste of luxury before being stripped of all dignity and life. You watch them, these prisoners of war, their faces etched with resignation, perhaps a flicker of wonder at the rich food, knowing it's their last indulgence. Is it an act of twisted mercy, a final comfort, or simply a way to fatten them up for the lions, ensuring a more satisfying kill for the baying crowd? This meal is also a time for final arrangements, for tying up loose ends in a life about to be abruptly severed. You can imagine the quiet conversations, the scribbled notes passed to a trusted friend or attendant, a last will, a final instruction for family back home. It's like writing a will before you've even truly begun to live, before you've reached your 25th birthday, knowing that your time is fleeting and precious. The act of eating, of savoring these last bites and sips, becomes a profound moment, an acceptance of their imminent fate. It is a dinner both decadent in its provision and utterly tragic in its purpose. A final, fleeting moment of humanity before stepping into the jaws of the arena. Now, let your imagination carry you through the bustling streets of ancient Rome, past the Forum, around the Colosseum's shadow, until you arrive before a formidable structure. This is the Ludus Magnus, the grandest gladiator school in Rome, a place often whispered about with a mixture of awe and fear. You can almost hear the faint clang of steel, the grunts of exertion, and the sharp commands of trainers echoing from within its sturdy walls. For those who entered its gates, this was more than just a training ground. It was the crucible where ordinary men were forged into superstars of blood, a grim university for the deadly arts. As you step inside, you feel the raw energy of the place. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, leather, and fresh sawdust, mingled with a subtle, metallic tang that hints at the brutal lessons learned here. The selection process is relentless, overseen by the watchful eyes of the Balanista, the owner and manager of the gladiators, a man whose fortune depends on the prowess of his fighters. Alongside him, the Bautuan Medici. Not just physicians, but also battle-hardened trainers. Scrutinize every muscle, every movement, every flicker of determination or fear in the eyes of the newcomers. They are looking for strength, endurance, a certain spark of ferocity, and perhaps a hidden resilience of spirit. Only the fittest, the strongest, the most promising are chosen to embark on this perilous path. The new recruits, known as novitius, face an immediate and brutal indoctrination. You observe them, fresh-faced or hardened by life, being beaten into shape with wooden weapons, their bodies aching, their spirits tested. The training is exhaustive, designed to strip away their old identities and rebuild them as fighting machines. Days are filled with drills, conditioning exercises, and sparring, pushing their physical and mental limits to the breaking point. You can almost hear the sharp crack of a wooden sword, the heavy thud of a shield, the gasps of pain and effort. Every movement, every strike, every defensive posture is honed and perfected under the unyielding gaze of the trainers. But the true initiation, the moment that seals their grim fate, is the kykeon, Sacramentum Gladiatorium, oath. Imagine standing with these men, your voice trembling slightly as you recite the chilling words. It's an oath of absolute submission, a pledge to accept whatever torments their master or the arena might inflict. I will endure to be burned, to be bound, to be beaten, and to die by the sword. It's a complete surrender of autonomy, a declaration that you accept burning, beheading, or the cold steel of a blade as your legitimate end. You can almost feel the weight of those words, the chilling finality of them, as they bind you to a life of violence and uncertain fate. Survival in this brutal academy means eventually earning the respected, if still perilous, title of veterini, a seasoned fighter who has proven their worth in the arena. Failure, however, means a far more common destiny to become nothing more than ash in the unforgiving sand. Your life extinguished, your name fading into the whispers of history. The Ludus Magnus stands as a testament to Rome's peculiar blend of order and savagery, a school that promised either fleeting glory or an honorable, if gruesome, death. As you wander through the more secluded sections of the Ludus Magnus, or perhaps another gladiator school, you stumble upon a stark contradiction. While the training yards hum with the brutal symphony of steel and sweat, the living quarters offer a surprising, almost unsettling, glimpse into a gladiator's life behind the scenes. You pass by cramped cells, some perhaps with the faint clinking of chains, reminding you that these men, regardless of their prowess, are still prisoners, property. Yet, within these seemingly harsh confines, a strange, almost luxurious existence unfolds, one that many free Romans could only dream of. You might be surprised to learn that these fighters, despite their confinement, actually ate better than most ordinary Romans. Forget the meager porridge or thin gruel that was the staple for the poor. For the gladiators, it was a diet designed for peak physical performance. Imagine the aroma of hearty meat, perhaps beef or pork, roasted to perfection, mingling with the scent of fresh fish, caught from the Tiber. You'd see baskets of nutrient-rich grains, like barley or spelt, forming their staple carbohydrates, bowls of fresh milk, full of vital proteins, and baskets of ripe fruit, bursting with flavor and vitamins. Would have been common sights. This was not a diet of deprivation, but one of calculated nutrition, meticulously planned to ensure strength, stamina, and quick recovery from injuries. Beyond their robust meals, gladiators also received a level of physical care that was almost unheard of for the common citizen. You can envision the scene after a grueling day of training. They would be treated to soothing massages, easing the tension from their powerful muscles. Then, the indulgence of hot and cold baths, a ritual practiced for health and relaxation. Imagine the feel of warm water easing aching limbs, followed by the invigorating shock of a cold plunge, promoting circulation and muscle recovery. It's a regimen that sounds remarkably similar to what modern-day elite athletes, like MMA fighters, might undergo today. This seemingly generous treatment, however, was not born of kindness or compassion. You understand, with a chilling clarity, that this was simply a matter of preservation. Gladiators were incredibly expensive assets. A skilled gladiator represented a significant investment for their lanista, an investment that yielded returns in the form of ticket sales, bets, and prestige. A healthy, well-fed, and physically prime gladiator was a performing asset, and every effort was made to protect that investment. They were, in essence, cared for like valuable livestock, primed for their moments in the arena. And for some, particularly the Octorati, the free men driven to this life by desperation, this brutal existence within the gladiatorial system actually represented a strange, paradoxical improvement. For a poor free man facing starvation or crushing debt, the promise of regular, nutritious food, dedicated medical care, and the slim chance of fame and fortune, however dangerous, was often a faster, more appealing road than continuing to struggle in the impoverished streets of Rome. You sense the grim bargain, the Faustian pact, that some of these men made, trading freedom for survival, and a potential, albeit fleeting, path to a better life, even if it meant living within a golden cage with iron bars. As you step back from the personal struggles of the gladiators, you begin to observe the broader tapestry of Roman society, and how the arena played a pivotal, insidious role within it. You realize that the spectacle of blood and glory was not merely entertainment. It was a potent instrument of political control, wielded by the Roman elite with chilling effectiveness. The roar of the crowd, the clash of swords, the cries of the dying. These were the background noise to a deeper, more subtle manipulation. Imagine yourself as an ordinary Roman citizen, living in a cramped, often squalid apartment in the city's bustling insulae. Life is hard, food is scarce, work is unsteady, and the weight of imperial power bears down heavily. You feel the constant gnawing of hunger, the anxieties of an uncertain future. But then, an announcement appears. Plastered across the city walls, free bread. And the greatest games Rome has ever seen, featuring the most fearsome gladiators and exotic beasts. This, you realize, is the genius of bread and circuses. The phrase, panem et circenses, was more than just a saying, it was a political strategy. By providing free food, often grain rations, and spectacular public entertainment, the Roman emperors and ambitious politicians found a way to appease the restless populace, to buy their silence, and to divert their attention from the pressing issues of the day. You see the eager faces of the crowd, lining up for their rations, then streaming towards the amphitheater, their minds temporarily relieved of their burdens, ready for the spectacle. While the mob cheered, their eyes fixated on the blood-soaked sand. The true machinations of the empire continued unnoticed. Behind the scenes, corruption thrived, inequality widened, and political power was consolidated. The gladiatorial arena became a terrifyingly effective tool, a powerful distraction that allowed the elites to operate with impunity. You witness how the collective focus of hundreds of thousands of citizens, once potentially directed towards grievances or rebellion, was expertly redirected towards the thrilling, visceral drama unfolding before them. The arena was not just a place for games. It was a stage where the power of the emperor was subtly reinforced. The lavishness of the spectacles demonstrated his wealth and generosity, cementing his popularity. The ruthless efficiency of the executions, disguised as entertainment, served as a stark warning to anyone who might consider defying his authority. You sense the underlying message, unspoken but potent. The empire is powerful, the emperor is supreme, and life is cheap. It was an empire, you realize, built on a strange foundation of cheers, corpses, and the masterfully orchestrated art of distraction, ensuring the loyalty of its citizens through a heady mix of fear and fleeting pleasure. In a world where life was fleeting and brutal, those who defied death in the arena achieved a peculiar, potent form of immortality. As you reflect on the gladiatorial games, you begin to understand that among the countless anonymous lives lost in the sand, a select few rose to become true legends, blood-soaked superstars, whose names were whispered in awe across the Roman Empire. Their stories are a testament to human resilience, skill, and sometimes a terrifying addiction to the very peril that defined their existence. Consider the enigmatic figure of Flamma, a Syrian gladiator whose renown still echoes through the ages. You learn that he fought an astonishing 34 times, emerging victorious from many of these deadly encounters. But what truly sets Flamma apart is his choice. He was granted freedom, the rudis, the wooden sword symbolizing a gladiator's retirement, not once, not twice, but 4 separate times. And each time, he refused. Imagine the psychological complexity of such a man. He chose to remain in the arena, addicted, perhaps, to the roar of the crowd, the surge of adrenaline, the undeniable rush of survival, or the unique, terrifying glory that only the arena could bestow. His was a life defined by the sword, a powerful testament to the intoxicating allure of blood and fame. Then there is the compelling tale of Marcus Attilius, a free man who voluntarily entered the arena as an octoratus. Unlike Flamma, he started as an underdog, yet he quickly captured the imagination of the Roman public. You can almost feel the collective gasp of the crowd as this newcomer, betting his life for a chance at solvency, began to topple seasoned gladiator champions, men who were considered unbeatable. His rise was meteoric, a true rags-to-riches story written in the most dangerous of inks, his own blood. He was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and skill could prevail. And for those who relished the truly wild spectacle, there was Carpophorus, known reverently as the King of Beasts. He was a bestiarius, a fighter specializing in battles against wild animals. His exploits were legendary, almost mythical. You can almost see him, a solitary figure against the raw power of nature, as tales are told of him killing 20 animals in a single day. Imagine the sheer courage, the honed reflexes, the unwavering nerve it must have taken to face not one, but 3 magnificent and terrifying predators simultaneously: a roaring lion, a lumbering bear, and a swift, cunning leopard. All at once, Carpophorus embodied the apex of this brutal craft, a master of survival against the deadliest creatures the Roman Empire could procure. These survivors, these exceptional few, became the rock stars of the ancient world. Their faces adorned murals, their names were scrawled in graffiti, and their victories were celebrated in poems and songs. They were the heroes of the common people, figures of strength and daring, living out fantasies of courage and triumph that ordinary Romans could only dream of. Yet, you understand with a quiet certainty, their stardom, however brilliant, was always painted in blood, a vibrant, terrifying red that reminded everyone of the ultimate price they paid for their fleeting glory. As you wander through the bustling streets of Rome in the days leading up to a major gladiatorial spectacle, you can almost feel the city thrumming with anticipation. This isn't just a casual gathering. It's a meticulously planned event, a grand production, marketed with an intensity that rivals modern-day concerts or sporting events. The ancient Romans, in their own sophisticated way, were masters of publicity, turning their blood shows into irresistible festivals. You see them everywhere, posters, painted in vibrant colors, plastered on walls, public buildings, and in busy thoroughfares. These aren't crude announcements. They are carefully designed advertisements. Imagine them, announcing with bold lettering, Munis of sponsor's name. They detail precisely who will be fighting, listing the names of popular gladiators, their fighting styles, and their win-loss records. You might see dramatic illustrations of gladiators locked in combat, or the fearsome silhouettes of the wild beasts that will make an appearance. Expect lion, bear, and leopard, a poster might declare, promising exotic and deadly encounters. Beyond just the fighters, these advertisements sometimes functioned like modern event menus, listing the specific types of fights, the number of bouts, and even the schedule of events. You can almost hear the buzz amongst the crowd as they discuss which gladiator will face which opponent, or speculate on the prowess of a new, undefeated champion. There would be mentions of accompanying music, perhaps a trumpet fanfare or the mournful wail of a horn, adding to the dramatic atmosphere. And in a chilling detail, some posters would even advertise the execution lists, a morbid promise of public justice or vengeance, designed to draw in those who crave the spectacle of death as much as the thrill of combat. The day itself would begin with an elaborate and magnificent opening parade, known as the Pompa. Imagine yourself standing among the throngs of people lining the streets, the air filled with the scent of incense and the sound of trumpets. You see the grand procession pass by first, the sponsor of the games, often a wealthy senator or the emperor himself, resplendent in his finest robes. Following him are the priests, performing ancient rituals, carrying sacred objects and burning offerings. Then come the divine images, statues of the gods, carried aloft to bless the games and ensure their success. And finally, the gladiators themselves, marching in their finest armor, their weapons gleaming, their faces a mixture of solemnity and fierce pride, knowing they are the stars of this deadly show. The entire event was a festival, a multi-sensory experience that blended sport, religious ritual, political propaganda, and brutal entertainment into one unforgettable, albeit bizarre, spectacle. Tickets, in a metaphorical sense, were paid not just in coin, but in the expectation of blood, in the shared thrill of life and death played out on a grand stage. Entertainment in Rome, you realize, was a unique and often disturbing mix of athletic competition, live music, a fervent carnival atmosphere, and the chilling reality of public killings, all designed to capture the hearts and minds of the masses. As you settle into your seat in the vast amphitheater, the roar of the crowd a low thrum against your chest, you realize that the gladiatorial matches were far more than just random acts of violence. They were, in essence, the ancient world's version of reality television, a carefully choreographed, intensely dramatic, and utterly gripping form of live entertainment. Despite the raw brutality, there was a structure, a set of rules, and even referees, all designed to heighten the spectacle. You might be surprised to learn that there were often referees, or sanino, soma rudis, present in the arena, armed with wooden staves to break up fights, enforce rules, and ensure fair play, as fair as a fight to the death could be. There were guidelines on how weapons could be used, what constituted a legitimate hit, and when a gladiator could plead for mercy. But you understand, with a chilling certainty, that despite these attempts at order, the true main spectacle was always the blood, the raw, visceral outpouring of life. The primal struggle for survival was what the crowds truly craved. A typical day at the Games was an exhausting marathon, both for the gladiators and the spectators. Fights, often lasting around 20 minutes each, would be packed into the schedule, sometimes up to 13 bouts in a single day. Imagine the endurance required, the constant tension, the relentless pace of combat. The gladiators would often start with warm-up exercises, using wooden weapons, their movements fluid and practiced, building the anticipation. Then, with a signal, the true full-blood mode would commence, and the arena would erupt in a cacophony of steel, shouts, and the gasps of the crowd. The moment of truth, the climax of each fight, was often when a gladiator fell, wounded or exhausted, and raised a finger, usually an index finger, to signal their surrender, their plea for mercy. It was a desperate, vulnerable gesture, exposing them to the raw power of the crowd. And here, the Games truly became Rome's X-factor of death. You hear the collective intake of breath, the deafening silence as thousands of eyes turn towards the sponsor of the Games, the buon editor, usually a magistrate or the emperor, who would then gauge the mood of the crowd. Their thumbs, or perhaps a waving handkerchief, would deliver the final verdict, life or death, determined by the fickle, often cruel, will of the masses. Rome, in its imperial genius and its peculiar savagery, had successfully turned the brutal reality of warfare into a controlled, consumable sport. And the gladiators, these magnificent, terrified, or defiant individuals, became their disposable stars, shining brightly for a fleeting moment before often being extinguished in the dust of the arena. You reflect on this, the chilling efficiency of it all, how human lives were transformed into entertainment, their fate resting on a wave of the hand, a turn of the thumb, a simple gesture in the grandest, bloodiest theater the world had ever known. As the final echoes of the crowd fade and the dust settles in the vast emptiness of the arena, you are left with a quiet, profound understanding of the gladiator's ultimate fate. In this world of brutal spectacle, there was an expectation, a grim standard, for how one should meet their end. Gladiators were not just expected to fight well, they were expected to die beautifully. Imagine the pressure. If you were a gladiator, you were taught to face death with stoicism, with courage, without a whimper. No screaming, no begging, no cowering. Your final moments were to be a performance, a testament to Roman virtue, a display of unwavering bravery, even in the face of inevitable demise. You can almost see the defeated warrior, kneeling, perhaps, offering his neck to the victor's sword, meeting his gaze with a final, defiant dignity. This beautiful death was a last act of honor, a final, chilling contribution to the spectacle. Sometimes, against all odds, a gladiator who fought with exceptional courage, even in defeat, might be spared by popular demand. You can almost feel the surge of mercy from the crowd, a collective change of heart as they wave their handkerchiefs, shouting "Mitte," let him go, saving a life from the brink. But just as often, despite a valiant fight, despite a clear surrender, the crowd might demand blood, and the gladiator, no matter how skilled or popular, would be slain. Their fate was a coin toss, entirely dependent on the fleeting whim of thousands of strangers. The life of a gladiator, even for the most successful, was tragically short. You learn that most gladiators died before they reached the age of 25. The physical toll, the constant danger, the relentless training, it all conspired to shorten their already precarious existence. And for the bestiarii, those brave or foolhardy souls who specialized in fighting wild animals, life was even shorter, their deaths often swift and brutal. Imagine being pitted against a lion, a tiger, or a bear, with only a shield and a spear. Their survival rates were terrifyingly low. In the most barbaric displays, some individuals, often condemned criminals or noxai, were thrown to animals unarmed, completely defenseless. Their purpose was purely entertainment, a gruesome spectacle of human vulnerability against the raw power of the wild. You can almost hear the terrified screams, the snarling of beasts, a dark testament to the depths of Roman entertainment. Rome, in its complex and often contradictory nature, celebrated slaughter as an art form. The arena was its grand canvas, and human lives were the vibrant, tragic colors. These legends of blood, however brief their lives, left an indelible mark on history, their stories echoing through the ages. You are left with a quiet reflection on the nature of humanity, on the choices made in desperation, on the thin veil between entertainment and horror, and on the enduring power of these ancient whispers. And perhaps, somewhere in that ancient Roman sand, beneath the layers of dust and time, the phantom footprints of these forgotten heroes and condemned souls still remain, telling their silent, powerful tale.